In this video lesson, I'm going to go through the key points to staining. I'll be following the points listed on this paper, which is posted inside the finishing room. Before staining, note that stain will highlight, not hide, defects such as glue spots, scratches, and chipping. Be sure to properly sand before beginning. First, you must remove all dust particles from the project using either a tack cloth or compressed air. Next, turn on the ventilation blower. Keep the door closed and put on gloves. Follow application directions located on the stain container, which usually includes something similar to the following steps. Remove the stain lid with the opener hanging in the finishing room. Stir the stain thoroughly with a clean stick or a flathead screwdriver. If you use a flathead screwdriver, be sure to wipe it clean. Be sure to always test the color on a scrap piece of the same species and grain pattern. Now you want to use a clean cloth to apply plenty of stain to the surface. I actually like to go across the grain to be sure the stain soaks into the open grain structure. And then if you don't like the way that looks in the end, you can always make another pass with the grain. And we're going to work our way across. And these are just example pieces, but be sure that you cover any surfaces of the board, the entire surfaces, edges, ends. Now you'll find that as you work, your cloth is going to dry out eventually. I don't have a lot of surface area here, so it probably won't for me, but you want to make sure that you're keeping your rag saturated so you completely soak the surface. Also, as you work for long periods of time, you may need to re-stir your can, so don't forget to do that. And then as you work, you want to make sure that you allow the stain to soak in for a good 5 to 15 minutes. So once you've given the stain a chance to soak in for 5 to 15 minutes, maybe you've been working for 5 to 15 minutes on other pieces, you want to come back to these. Now this is critical. You never allow excess stain to dry on the surface of the wood. So I'm going to get a clean cloth and make sure I wipe off any excess that's on the surface. If you allow that excess to dry, it will be sticky forever. And to make sure I wipe off any excess, eventually your clean rag will get saturated and you'll need a new rag for wiping off the excess as well. So always be sure you leave your surfaces dry. Now one thing to note about staining is that if you have a lot of surfaces to cover, it's all about time. So in my example pieces, I only did the surfaces. Maybe that's all that need to be stained. But again, it never hurts to cover all surfaces, even if they're not going to be seen. But especially if you have something where all the surfaces will be seen, such as a leg like this, you want to stain all this, but you don't want to have to just stain 3 sides and then set it down and wait to do the back side. So in cases like that, you want to get creative. So something with screws through a board or nails through a board like this. If I want to do both sides of this board, I want to make sure I apply stain to both sides, and then I can set it. There's little nails in this board here. I can set it on those nails. For this leg, I can apply stain to all the surfaces, and then I have a hole in the end of the leg that won't be seen, and I can screw that leg in that way. So think about how you can be creative about covering all surfaces and then letting the part sit without it smearing on any surfaces. And then you can come back to these parts as they are, wipe off the excess. I can wipe off the excess here, flip it, and wipe off the excess. Once you've wiped off all the excess stain, you need to let your pieces sit for the required dry time before applying any type of finish. Do note that stain itself is not a finish. Even though this says wood finish, you cannot just leave your project with only stain on it. You need to apply some type of surface or penetrating finish. So these are all examples. Make sure you wait the required dry time before applying any finish. Once you're all done with the stain, you can put the lid back on. Make sure you seal it up good. You can use the palm of your hand to press it down. You can also lightly tap with a rubber mallet. And then return it to the flammable liquid cabinet. The next point is key for safety. Any stain-soaked rags we need to place in a water-filled container. If we were to leave those piled up somewhere, those could spontaneously combust, start on fire on their own with no flame. The last point to make is that we never want to sand after only applying stain. Sanding is only for between coats of finish, and I've already said stain is not finish. So please do not sand after applying stain.